I've been asked this question before, what does it mean to be Ngarrindjeri? And I believe it's knowing who you are, knowing where you come from, knowing your heritage, your history, knowing your country, your lands and your waters. The biggest thing of all is having that feeling inside you of knowing who you are.
To be Ngarrindjeri is to be strong. To me it means that to practice your culture, to be proud of who you are. Ngarrindjeri is the nation was a strong nation from way back. Know our creation stories everywhere you go through this country. The stories about the land, the songs, how the songs got there. That's a little bit of what it means to me to be Ngarrindjeri.
It's a very important part. If we don't know who we are, what can we pass on to our children? We've got to just keep it going. It's very important.
Auntie Eileen's doing the opening, the welcome to country. I'll do the smoking ceremony and welcome the ancestors.
Wirakawalan, Yant Alau, and Ngarrindjeri. And I believe I've got some Ngarrindjeri cornies over that side that should be able to translate to English, eh?
Once you have a welcome to country, it gives you an introduction to an individual or a group of people, but you really need to put effort and time in building, a more personal relationship built on trust, respect, and value.
Sometimes you think that people out there know it, but they don't. So we said we'll have to make ourselves available to be able to pass on knowledge, share information, and we believe that would lead to a better understanding between all people. We're saying now how things should be done, because we're tired of other people saying how we should do it. So we've turned that around and we'll say, no, this is how we believe it should be done.
What's your views on what non-Indigenous people should do after we have a welcome to country?
That your relationship should not be about taking something from Aboriginal people or becoming an expert on Aboriginal people, but finding ways to work with people and look at where your expertise can be useful in building that better future.
You're having a conference down here in Ngarrindjeri country. You've come to know about the area through the Welcome to Country process. You're coming to talk about issues. What can you do to contribute to building a healthy future for Ngarrindjeri people in their country?
What this?
Unky, this is a colonial frame. How can we reframe it?
Well, if that's the colonial frame, let's chuck it away and get rid of it and let us all sit down and create a new frame or have no frame.
Well, the square, it's a framework that comes from Western society. And like the square, they put us all in little boxes because they wanted to label us. This is there, this is there, this is what you are. So if I wanted to reshape this, I'd make it round. That way, everything's continuous. And you don't put anyone in that little box. You don't put anyone there to suffer.
If you want to be fair dinkum in Australia and call yourself Australian people, come up with new constitutions that suit this country in this day and age.
How do we continue to have our own agency, our own ways of doing things that speak back to that frame, that shift it, that reframe it, in fact. When you say, what do you want to do with that frame? I'd like to try and understand it and then make some conscious decisions about how valuable that is or not.
I'd send it back. and build our own. Because I don't think you can reshape that. Because in people's minds, it's not just this, you see it. They see everything the square, where we see everything round.
This colonial frame, well, I weave you a small mat and I put it inside that and seal it. At the moment, that is unfinished. So if we put that in there, it'll be finished and completed.
We want to find a way to build equitable partnerships with communities to create content that is really collaborative. And yeah, I'd like to hand over to Laurie to say a few words as well.
We'd like to invite you all to join us on our journey with digital media and to use this project as a feedback tool to engage and share your stories with the Ngarrindjeri, just to create a better future for everyone. We have a colonial frame. We'd like to get your ideas on how we can reshape it for a better future and a better Australia. Thank you.
How was it to get on stage and speak in front of 600 people?
I was nervous, absolutely. I honestly felt like I was going to get dizzy, start looking faint. But I've always tried to compose myself when I'm in an awkward spot like that. But it's when I get down and it's all finished, then the heart races and everything's happening. And even though it's all over, that's when sort of everything comes out.
When colonisation turned up, Ngarrindjeri people didn't suddenly throw their arms in the air and go, colonise me, please colonise me, I want to be colonised. You know, Ngarrindjeri people said no. We've got ideas, values, beliefs, knowledge that we think is important, and then we will struggle to hold those and we'll struggle to maintain them within our community context.
We have a strong idea on a Ngarrindjeri perspective, especially with the colonial frame. And it would be nice to have that understanding of a non-Indigenous, what their thoughts are.
You're only going to see straight ahead. You're only going to see one path instead of 12 or 24.
What I love the idea of is that everybody contains and has their own frame, and it's these here, your eyes, and it usually is 180 peripheral vision. And if you walk around the world with that thought, you're always a camera and you're always framing things, so be aware of that.
Well, we could reshape it by asking the Ngarrindjeri people, or wherever it is in South Australia, to create something that is a frame made by traditional people through traditional resources that has meaning.
And I guess that's probably what it really means to me, is how can they engage with us, to be a bit more involved. They don't have to dig in their pockets, just have an open chat, you know? Yeah. Get to know us a bit better, we get to know them a bit better.
It's really critical to be behind the camera, asking the questions, deciding what you want to do, what kinds of documentaries, what kinds of films, what kinds of things you want to create for your kids, your grandkids, but also being in control of that rather than being filmed by somebody else. The frame, somebody else creating it. You know, we live in a digital world. You've got to be up to date with the technology, but you've also got to be thoughtful and creative with it.
When you think about our community today, we're not a community that all lives on country. Quite a lot of us live in Adelaide. So how do we find ways to be able to connect, to communicate, to share information and knowledge? I know most of it occurs on country, but we need to be able to connect with our community in Adelaide as well, because they're part of the Ngarrindjeri Nation. They have every right to be a part of what goes on in terms of developing a healthy future for Ngarrindjeri people. And so media becomes a really great tool.
We want shots of gore where we now want the intervention with the frame.
Stick it in the sand, throw it in the water, put it in some high grass or something, and just put it in front of it.
That's just a frame we'll take now. We could do the same with the barrages, because then these are colonial structures.
Even throw it in the water and get the slow motion, the water come up, it'll look good.
And then this evening we have to finish the edit. So hopefully we, by this afternoon, have something really solid so it doesn't take us all night. And because tomorrow morning we're screening the first video. It's really tight. Here is if you finish typing them up and print it out. Cool, so there you go, do that. Just use the production folder you've got.
If you don't have trust and respect, you're not going to be able to be honest in your dialogue, in your conversation. And through the digital media stuff we've currently been doing, we've been developing good working relationships and partnerships. By doing this in a way where you've built trust, you've built respect, as well as formalising these relationships, has allowed us as Ngarrindjeri to retain control, be in the driver's seat.
Through your art practice, how do you work towards cultural understanding and reconciliation?
The important bit about it is when you're weaving, you're bringing people together, you're working alongside with them, and you think about the stories that come out of while you're sitting around weaving. And when I look back on that weaving, it was a survival. It's a very important part of their lifestyle. One strong thing is to be able to share it with others and to know how strong we are, that we're able to keep striving on.
What I'd like to see in the future would be that we remain Ngarrindjeri.
To make sure our knowledge isn't lost over time, that each generation gets an opportunity to be able to participate in the practice of who they are.
How would I reshape this? A colonial frame. Now to fill the frame up, you need to have a beautiful picture. And at the moment, this frame is broken. It's an empty gap. Me, I would start on with myself to heal my journey, to keep moving forward, work on my children, to give them strength.
The reconciliation movement was largely about people to people. It's actually about a relationship that connects people to land, spirit, country, to the birds and the fish and the animals. So it's the development of a deep consciousness of place, and so for every participant at the conference, build that deep consciousness of place. The engagement of the Ngarrindjeri community in the conference is a process in doing that. So think about that from that perspective. It's not just an exercise of the mind, it's an exercise of a different nature and of a different kind.
It's hard because as Ngarrindjeri, we have to grow up maintaining and learning two ways of life. And that's the Western ways, but also maintaining our own ways of life.
To myself, to be Ngarrindjeri is to be strong. I mean, today we have to live in two worlds, whether we like it or not. But we have to live in our world first.
One of the things Ngarrindjeri did a number of years ago after Hindmarsh Island was to ask that question, that at the heart of most of Australian thinking is cultural appropriation. Sitting down with government was usually tokenistic. There wasn't any seriousness around it.
And if the method is that want to do projects together, well then do it correctly. And if the way to do things today, the Western way, is by agreement making, well then let's develop agreements. A lot of people know the agreements that we've been forming at the moment are called Kungan Ngarrindjeri Yanan agreements, which means listen to Ngarrindjeri people when we're talking.
And I think that's what Ngarrindjeri have really done in the last, say, 10, 15 years. That idea of the Kungan Ngarrindjeri Yanan agreement changes that relationship. It creates like a treaty. It's not tokenistic.
I look at it as a very strong reconciliation about bringing people together, and that's very valuable.
All societies, all communities offer something that can be of use and can be of value. I think the frame needs to be understood. needs to be challenged where it needs to be challenged. I don't think it's a matter of outright rejection of the frame. It might be necessary to do that in part. Maybe it might be necessary into the future to reject it fully, but what I'd like to try and do is understand it a bit better to see where it might be useful to us, how it might be complementary and work with some of the things that we're trying to do without necessarily outrightly rejecting it.
I'd probably throw it over there. Well, you know, there's frameworks, you know, like that. And they don't think we have a mind to think. They don't think about the laws that were here for thousands of years. They should be coming into our frame. We're still here and we're not going anywhere. We're still in our country.
To me, the frame could be smashed into 1,000 pieces, put on a white wall for everybody to see just how culture is smashed in this country. That's what it means to me.
There's still a lot more work to be done in what they call reconciliation today. It's how do you engage with Ngarrindjeri people? How do we engage with other people? And you know, and I think it's just be yourself, and be respectful and smile, be friendly. Don't look at Ngarrindjeri sideways.
Listen to us. That's it. There's nothing spectacular they have to do. Just listen.